Welcome to week 3, lecture 1, theory of the farm. Here we are just going to look at some basic concepts. We're also going to look at how different farms are established. Farms are normally established by one particular individual or maybe groups of individuals. So we have like the one-man business. One particular individual decided to set up a business, like say, I want to sell lemonade and prepare lemonade at home. Then um, prepare some bottles of lemonade and then sell them to consumers, those people who would like to buy lemonade. So that's a one-man business. So I could also try to meet with other people, maybe like another individual. We try to put our capital together. So everybody contributes some amount of capital towards the establishment of the business. So if two people decide to establish a business, then that particular corporation or maybe that particular farm is referred to as a partnership. So we have certain grocery stores that are owned by two individuals, maybe like family business. You have mom and dad putting together some money to set up the business. You have certain laundromats that are owned by some family. So these are all either one-man business or maybe joint partner business. So we also have certain business that are formed by large group of individuals. Uh, Take the case of Goldman Sachs, uh, Walmart, Food Lion, and Spectrum cable TV. So these are all formed by large number of individuals. So have those individuals who try to run those farms, run those businesses. So, but let's try to see what we got for today. Farms are created and owned by individuals. Some farms are created by single individuals. For example, you have small grocery stores, merchandise establishments. You have other big farms created by a large number of people, large number of individuals, like Spectrum Cable. So in general, farms exist because they help to improve the efficiency of economic transactions. Um, they act as um, intermediary in the operation of the market mechanism. But the question is, how do they go about improving the efficiency of economic transactions? So that is food for thought for all of you guys. Now let's look at basic definitions. We have the farm here. A farm is an entity that uses available resources to produce a given level of output. They produce goods and services for sale in the market, and they use appropriate technology to produce the goods. The primary objective of any farm is to maximize profit. But we also note that one particular thing that you need to note here is farms operate efficiently if they can produce a good at the least amount of cost. But if the cost of producing, now we can compare the efficiency of different farms based on the amount of, based on the cost associated with the production of goods for those farms. So you have high cost industries, you have very low cost industries. But the bottom line here is we're trying to look at a farm that can produce food at the least amount of cost. So they produce quality product at the least amount of cost. So later on, when we deal with perfect competition, monopoly, we're going to see how this one plays out. So now let's look at marginal benefits. Marginal benefits refers to the additional benefits gained from production of one more unit of output. So let's say, for example, we used to produce maybe 10 bottles of lemonade, and total benefit is maybe $20 from the production of lemonade. If we decide to increase the amount of lemonade production, then the marginal benefit there is the additional benefit gained from the production of the extra units. So let's say, for example, we move from 1 unit to 2 units. So clearly, the total benefits of producing 1 is higher, assuming that it is higher than the total benefit of producing 2 units. So the difference in the total benefits of those 2 outputs divided by the difference between maybe the difference between 2 and 1. That is, if we have, let's say, 1 unit produce like, let's say the total benefit is like $10, and then for 2 units, total benefit is $12, right? Okay, so the marginal benefit there is going to be 12 minus 10 divided by 2 minus 1. So that gives us the total benefit, the marginal benefit, sorry. So it is just the difference in the total benefit divided by the difference in the amount of goods that is produced. In other words, it is the derivative of the total cost with respect to output. So if we have, let's say, a marginal benefit here, it is equals to change in total benefit divided by change in output, and that gives us marginal benefit. So the marginal benefit is just the change in total benefit divided by the change in output. So it is that extra benefits that is obtained from the production of an additional unit that is referred to as the marginal benefit. Now, the marginal cost is just the additional cost incurred by the farm from producing an extra unit of output or of the good. So similarly here, it is just a change in the total cost divided by a change in output. So the marginal cost is just a change in total cost divided by a change in output. That is the marginal cost of producing and extra units output. Now let's move on to revenue. Revenue here refers to the money amount that is received from the sale of a product. Let's say, for example, I produce 100 units of chocolates. Now, if one unit of chocolate costs like 50 cents, but I produce like 100 units, right? So the total revenue there is just the price per unit, which is 50 cents, multiplied by 100, and that gives me what? You multiply that by 100, so that gives you what? $50, right? Okay. So the 100 units, they are multiplied by 50 cents, that gives you $50. So that is your revenue. So the revenue is just the price multiplied by the quantity. It is easy, straightforward. Now, what is the marginal revenue? Sometimes when we produce goods, we add some amount of, let's say we experience some amount of revenue, from the production of an extra unit, right? So if you produce, let's say you used to produce 10 units, or let's say the last example, you produce 100 units, and then your revenue is $50. Now let's say you decide to produce another unit of chocolates. Let's say this time is 101, right? So if I produce 101, so if one chocolate costs 50 cents, that the revenue I'm gonna get is gonna be what? It's gonna be $50.50, right? So it's $50.50. Now, if I want to obtain the marginal revenue there, what I need to do is just to subtract the $50 from the $50.50, and then divide by what? By maybe 101 minus 100, and that gives me 1, right? So $50.50 minus $50, that gives me 50 cents. Divide by 1, and that gives me 50 cents, 0.5. So 0.5 there, or 50 cents, is the marginal revenue. That is the revenue received from the production and sale of an additional unit of the product. So we're going to look at this one when we try to study profit maximization of the firm. Now, let's move on to sunk cost. Sunk cost refers to costs that can no longer be avoided. So once it has been sunk, it is a sunk cost. So it can no longer be avoided. So sunk costs are irrelevant to the firm's production decision. They are irrelevant to the firm's production decision. Now, take for example, if you decide maybe to rent a particular place, to operate your business. You rent the place, maybe like a building, and if you rent that particular building for $100, And if for some reason the rent of that building increase, if the rent increases, let's say by $2, so $100 to $102, right? So if you decide to continue to produce the goods that you are producing without acknowledging maybe the cost increase, or you want to continue to produce, then that rent increase becomes a sunk cost. The moment you decide to continue production, it becomes a sunk cost. So it is irrelevant to the fact, it is irrelevant to your production decision. So it does not factor in to your production decisions. So that's why they are regarded as sunk cost. That's why they are regarded as sunk cost. They are completely different from other types of costs like variable costs and fixed costs that we are going to take a look at shortly. Now let's move on to fixed cost. Fixed cost refers to the costs that don't vary with output. So this normally refers to expenses that have to be paid by the farm irrespective of whether it produces goods or not. So if you want to set up a particular business, the first thing you have to do is to put up the structure, maybe the building, right? So the cost of putting up that particular building becomes a fixed cost, right? So it is a fixed cost in the sense that, well, you could also say it's a sunk cost, but we don't have to call it a sunk cost here. We just say that's the fixed cost, right? So it is the fixed cost of producing the good. So you have to set up the building, or maybe you have to set up the machinery. And so the cost of setting up that machinery is what is referred to as the fixed cost. Again, if you have to pay rent, maybe for a particular building, in order to operate your business, so that cost, the rent there is referred to as the fixed cost. Again, if you have to pay taxes, property taxes, you have to pay insurance, for your business, that again is referred to as fixed cost. So we're going to see how this one affects the total cost. As a matter of fact, the fixed costs have no effect on the marginal cost. The marginal cost is not affected even if the fixed cost changes. The variable cost refers to costs that vary with outputs. As the name suggests, it varies with outputs. So 1 unit of output produced has a variable cost of maybe $10. Then if we produce 2 more units, let's say the second unit, that maybe it's going to be like $20. So if we increase the output, we expect the variable cost to increase as well, because the cost of producing the first unit may not be the same as the cost of producing the second unit. Now, take for example, you have a farm that is producing grasses, right? So this farm hires labor to produce dresses, buys sewing machines to produce dresses. So let's say, for example, is producing these dresses inefficiently, maybe having two maybe tailors to use one particular machine to do the production process. So that's an instance where production is done inefficiently. So you could have you could only hire one particular tailor, to produce all the dresses. So that will be efficient. You hire one particular individual to produce all the dresses, use all the machines, rather than having maybe two people operating on one particular machine, because um, those two people will not be able to operate on the same machine at the same time. So it means that one of the person will be idle, whilst the other one will be producing. So there is idle resources lying by. So it is an inefficient production method. So the producer will be able to operate efficiently. Maybe each particular tailor has his own machine to produce. So in that case, going to produce more output, um, uh, for a specified period of time. Or if they have like two tailors working on one machine, so the level of production will be very low. At the same time, production is done inefficiently. So total cost refers to the total cost of producing a good. It is just the sum of the fixed cost and the variable cost. So when the farm is trying to calculate its total cost of producing goods, he has to take account of fixed costs as well as variable costs. Well, some farms also, let's say when we deal with externalities, you will see how farms also factor in um, the social cost of their production process as well. They factor in that social cost. For example, if they have to pollute the environment through their process of producing the goods, then they need to factor that one into their cost decisions. So, but here we're just going to say total cost is what? Fixed cost plus variable cost, right? So fixed cost plus variable cost. So a change in the fixed cost leads to a parallel shift of the total cost curve, but leaves the marginal cost unchanged. So as I said earlier, the marginal cost remains unchanged even if the fixed cost changes. Now let's look at a table here. So we look at the number of acres sprayed, for a particular farm. Looking at a particular farmer here who's producing crops, so he has to spray some acres with insecticides or so. So now we look at the total benefits. Total benefit there is 0, and then total cost is 4. When nothing is produced. Now, if you look at that value 4 under total cost, you notice that cost, even though the farm does not produce anything here, so still incurs some amount of cost. So that is the fixed cost. So that is what the farm incurs when nothing is produced. So it is the fixed cost. Maybe it could be rent, it could be maybe setting up the business, putting up the infrastructure, etc. So that is what is referred to as the fixed cost. So this does not include anything like maintenance of the building, does not include anything like that. So for 1 acre, total benefit is $6, and then the marginal benefit there is $6. So the marginal benefit there is just the change in total benefit over the change in what? Output, yeah, right? So the change in total benefit is minus 0, and then the change in output is 1 minus 0. So 6 minus 0 divided by 1 minus 0 is what? Is 6 over 1, right? So that gives us 6. So similarly, if we want to find the marginal benefits for 2 acres, it is just change in total benefit over change in output. So which is what? 11 minus 6 divided by 2 minus 1. That gives us 5. 11 minus 6 is 5. So we do the same thing for the other. So now for the total cost here, we see that for 1 unit the cost is $7. For 2 units the cost is $10. For 3 units the cost is $13, right? So but if we look at the marginal cost here, the marginal cost column, we notice that it is constant. It is a constant value of 3. So we refer to this particular industry or farm as what? A constant cost industry. In other words, the marginal cost of this particular farm is a constant. It's equals to 3. So the marginal cost here does not vary with outputs. It doesn't vary with outputs. It is just a constant value, which is 3. Right? Okay. Now, what is the net gain? How do we get the net gain? The net gain there is just like the profit or loss. So if we produce nothing, so the net gain is going to be total benefit minus total cost, which is 0 minus 4, and that gives us minus 4. So if we spray one acre, and then the total benefit is $6, and then the total cost is $7. So 6 minus 7 is -1, right? So the same thing occurs for 2 acres. Total benefits 2 acres minus total cost for 2 acres is 11 minus 10, which is just 1, right? So that is the net gain or net loss, right? Let's move on to the profit maximization of a farm. Farms produce goods with the aim of what? Maximizing profits. A profit maximizing farm produces a good at the point where the difference between total revenue and total cost is the greatest. Where the difference between total revenue and total cost is the greatest. That is the point where the profit is the greatest. Because the difference between the total revenue and total cost is just the profit. So it produces at the point where the profit is the highest one. That is the output level that the farm produces. That is the amount of output that it produces. Now, for a profit maximizing farm, it always produces at a point where the profit is the highest. That is the difference between the total revenue and total cost is the highest value. In other words, the farm maximizes profits at the point where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost. That is, the extra revenue received from an additional unit of the good produced is just equals to the extra cost incurred from the production of an additional unit of the good. So that is the level of output that maximizes. Yeah. Now let's consider the Taylor Dress company in the textbook. Now, if we look at the table here, we notice that When the farm is not producing anything, when the tail or dress company is not producing anything, the total cost is 2. Now, we said earlier that the total cost is just the sum of the fixed cost and the variable cost. So if the total cost is 2 when the farm is not producing anything, it is possible that that value 2 is the fixed cost and not the variable cost, because nothing is being produced. So the total cost there is just the fixed cost, and that fixed cost is maybe cost of setting up the business, maybe setting up the machinery, etc. That's the fixed cost. So for 0 unit use. Now, if 1 unit, maybe 1 dress is produced by the tailor dress company, and the price per unit there is just $10, we expect the revenue to be $10. Sorry. So revenue is just 10 times 1, which is just 10, right? Okay. Now, let's look at the marginal revenue. So why do we have 10 there? Now, we have 10 there because we divide the change in total revenue by the change in quantity. So the change in total revenue is just the revenue when 1 unit is produced minus the revenue when 0 units is produced. That is just 10 minus 0, which is just 10. And then divided by 1 minus 0, which is 1. So 10 divided by 1 is just 10. So that's how we get the value 10. That's how we get 10. So we have 10 there as the marginal revenue. Now, if the farm decides to produce 2 dresses at a price of $9, right? $9 per dress. So the total revenue there is going to be 9 times 2, which is just 18. So the total revenue is $18. So, but what is the marginal revenue here? The marginal revenue is just the change in total revenue divided by the change in outputs, the change in quantity. So the change in total revenue here is just 18 minus 10, and then divided by the change in quantity is 2 minus 1. So 18 minus 10 is just 8. 18 minus 10 is just 8. And then 2 minus 1 is just 1. So if we divide 8 by 1, we're going to get 8. So that's how we got it, right? So now let's move on to the next column, which is the cost. We want to find the marginal cost. The marginal cost is the change in total cost divided by the change in outputs. So the marginal cost for producing 1 dress is just 3 minus 2, which is the change in total cost divided by change in output. Change in output is 1 minus 0. So 3 minus 2 divided by 1 minus 0 is just 1, right? Now for 2 dresses, we notice that the marginal cost is 2. So if you look at the marginal cost column, you realize that the marginal cost is increasing with what? and increase in outputs. So as we produce more dresses, the cost of producing an additional units is higher. So producing an extra unit is therefore expensive than producing the previous unit. So it is very expensive than producing the previous unit. So that's why we say here, this particular farm has increasing marginal cost, experiences or faces increasing marginal cost. So it is expensive for this farm to produce an extra units of the good. So for this increasing marginal cost. Now the profit of the farm here is just the difference between the total revenue and the total cost. It's the difference between the total revenue and the total cost. Now, if we look at that profit column, we notice that the point where the total revenue is the greatest is 4 units, right? It started at 3, but we notice that it sets at 4, so it's 4 units. Because at 4 units, the marginal cost is just equals to the marginal revenue. Marginal cost there is 4, marginal revenue is 4, right? So marginal cost is just equals to marginal revenue, and then profit is at the greatest point or the highest level. Now you notice that after 16, after the fourth dress, you see every additional dress yields what? A lower profit for the tailor company, and at the same time it increases the total cost, right? So profit becomes negative after the 6th dress is produced. So when the 7th dress is produced, the profit becomes negative, which is -2, right? So we're gonna see how the farm will shut down. It will shut down when the farm is not able to cover its variable cost. Now, the farm will continue to produce. It's not going to shut down. It's going to continue to produce, even if it's incurring a loss. But if it's incurring a loss to the point where it cannot cover its fixed cost, then it's going to shut down. So that's the time when it is going to shut down. So if it's able to maybe make a loss, at the same time it's able to cover its fixed costs, setting up the business, the machine, then it will continue to produce. Even though it's earning negative profit, it will continue to produce, or will shut down when it's not able to continue to produce, when it's not able to cover its fixed cost, when the fixed cost of production is covered. Now let us try to look at these graphs. We see that the point where profits are very, very high, highest amount of profits. See that that's the point where the farm produces 4 units. So this is the profit maximizing level of output, which is 4. And then if we look at the marginal cost here, it is increasing. So it is increasing with output. As output increases, the marginal cost increases as well. So we say here that this industry, this tailor dress company, has or experience an increase in marginal cost, right? Experiences increase in marginal cost. Now the marginal revenue curve is downward sloping, and it becomes negative after the sixth dress is produced. It becomes negative. So, and C is also downward sloping, and it's a straight line. It intersects with the marginal cost curve at a particular point, and the level of output here is 4. So that level of output is the profit maximizing level of output, because the output at which marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. At the same time, it is the output level for which the difference between the total revenue and total cost is the greatest. So, and you say this particular industry um, experiences increasing marginal cost because the marginal cost increases with increasing outputs. Now, this is exercise for you, and you are going to solve this one, and I need you guys to um, solve this particular problem. So look at this. This is in Landsberg. The farm faces the following demand and total cost schedule. Suppose that the farm is required to produce a whole number of items each month. How much does it produce and at what price? How do you know? Are marginal costs increasing? So I need you to go home, take a pen and paper, solve this particular problem. Try to find the total revenue first, then you find the profits, you find the marginal cost, you find the marginal revenue, right? So I want you to compute all those ones. Go home, sit down, try to get the revenue column, get the total cost. Total cost is already given. Get the marginal total revenue column, marginal revenue column, and then get another column for the marginal cost, get another column for the profits, and then try to determine whether the marginal costs are increasing here. So you are also going to draw a graph of this particular question. For this particular question, you are going to draw a graph here for all the different curves. So you also have to determine how much is being produced. Now, you know that this is a profit maximizing farm, right? It only produces at a point where the difference between total revenue and the total cost is the greatest. That is at the point where the profits are highest. So that particular output is what you are going to determine. And then at what price? The corresponding price for that output is what you're going to write down. That is your answer. So how do you know? You need to explain how you know. How you know? Well, precisely, you know exactly because you are able to know the revenue of the farm, you're able to determine the revenue of the farm, you're able to determine the profit, and then you're able to determine the marginal cost. At the same time, you are able to compare the marginal cost and the marginal revenue of the farm. So that's how you're able to know this one. So I guess I've given you I've given you some hints regarding this particular question. I know some of you are actually struggling with graphs or algebra. I can see when I grade your scripts, your assignments. So, but we're going to find some time, maybe during the revision week, the 7th week, I believe we're gonna go over all these things so that people able to understand um, or be able to prepare very well for the finals during the 8th week, or maybe after the 8th week, because I believe you're gonna take your exams after the 8th week, so you're gonna have some time to prepare exams. But go try to solve these ones, and hopefully I'm gonna put up some other slides for theory of the course, the isoquants, there's some other computation. So try to do this one, and then this one also includes an Excel spreadsheet. You have to go to the Excel spreadsheet to do the problem there, to solve the problem there, complete the table, and then you're also going to draw the graphs. So I need you to work on those ones.